Have you ever wondered what secrets military commanders take to their graves? What if I told you that one of the most legendary Native American war heroes of World War II left behind a chest that contained something so extraordinary that when it was finally opened decades later, it changed our understanding of the Pacific theater forever? Something the government never wanted you to know. Before we continue with this shocking revelation, I need you to comment where you're watching from right now. Our channel needs your support to keep uncovering these hidden stories that powerful people want buried. Subscribe now to make sure you don't miss the truth they've kept from us for over 70 years. In the summer of 2005, a maintenance crew was clearing out a forgotten storage facility at Fort Huachuca, Arizona. The sprawling military installation, with its sun-bleached buildings set against the dramatic backdrop of the Huachuca Mountains, had served as a crucial intelligence center since World War II. The workers weren't expecting to find anything of significance in the dusty corner of Building 107, a structure scheduled for demolition the following month. It was almost invisible, tucked behind some old filing cabinets that probably hadn't been moved since the 1950s, recalled Marcus Jenkins, the civilian contractor who made the discovery. Just a simple wooden chest with faded brass fittings. But it had this strange symbol burned into the top, something that looked like a combination of military insignia and traditional Apache designs. The chest was secured with 3 separate locks and bore the name Colonel John Kewekla stenciled on its side. What the maintenance crew couldn't have known was that they had just stumbled upon one of the most significant lost artifacts of World War II. A chest belonging to a decorated Apache commander whose classified role in the Pacific Campaign had been almost entirely erased from official records. Colonel John Kewekla was a third-generation military man, grandson of the legendary Apache warrior Geronimo, who had risen through the ranks despite the endemic racism of the period. His official military records showed a distinguished but unremarkable career. West Point graduate, infantry officer, recipient of the Silver Star for bravery during the Battle of Guadalcanal. But the contents of his war chest would tell a very different story. When the chest was delivered to the base commander's office, military historians were immediately called in. Dr. Elizabeth Lansing of the National Archives arrived within 24 hours, along with representatives from the Department of Defense. The chest was transported under armed guard to a secure facility, where it remained for 3 days before being opened. "I've worked with classified military artifacts for 23 years, Dr. Lansing later stated in a heavily redacted report, but nothing prepared me for what we found inside that chest. It fundamentally alters our understanding of how the Pacific War was won." The chest contained 3 separate compartments, each revealing layers of America's secret war history that had never been made public. The first compartment held a series of leather-bound journals. These weren't ordinary war diaries, but contained detailed accounts of a classified Apache communications unit that operated throughout the Pacific theater. Colonel Kewekla had led a team of 19 Apache soldiers who used their native language as an unbreakable code, similar to, but distinct from, the famous Navajo code talkers. "We exist in the shadows," Kewekla wrote on December 7, 1943. "Our words fly through the air, incomprehensible to the enemy. We speak the language our government once tried to beat out of us in schools, and now that same language saves American lives by the thousands. There is both justice and irony in this." But the journals revealed something even more extraordinary. The Apache unit wasn't just relaying encoded messages, they were conducting classified intelligence operations deep behind enemy lines, operations so secret that not even the highest-ranking generals were fully briefed on their activities. Today I sent Martinez and Chato into Japanese headquarters at Rabaul. read an entry from February 12, 1944. They walked in dressed as Filipino laborers, memorized the battle plans laid out on the commander's desk, and walked out undetected. The Japanese believe our success is due to lucky guesses. They cannot imagine that their most secure facilities have been compromised. The second compartment of the chest contained dozens of black and white photographs, many showing Keweikla's Apache unit in locations they were never officially recorded as having visited. Tokyo Bay, months before the war ended. Restricted imperial research facilities. Even what appeared to be the emperor's summer residence. One photo in particular shocked the historians. Keiweikla, dressed in a Japanese officer's uniform, sitting across from what appeared to be Imperial General Hideki Tojo. The back of the photo was dated June 2, 1944, a time when Tojo was still Prime Minister of Japan, and when no American was supposed to be within 1,000 miles of him. "The Phoenix operation remains our highest priority," Keiweikla had written beneath a series of photographs showing Japanese scientific installations. "If they complete the weapon, the mainland will be vulnerable. Roosevelt has authorized whatever means necessary to infiltrate and sabotage." Military historians had never heard of any Phoenix operation, nor of Japanese superweapons threatening the American mainland. The implications were staggering, suggesting that a small Apache unit had secretly prevented a devastating attack on American soil, a fact never acknowledged in any official history. Dr. Richard Whitecloud, one of the few Native American historians granted access to examine the contents, observed, "These records suggest that while Navajo code talkers have rightfully received recognition for their vital contribution, Colonel Keiweikla's Apache unit was conducting even more sensitive operations that remained classified decades longer. The question is, why keep it secret for 60 years after the war ended?" The answer appeared to lie in the chest's third and final compartment. This section contained items so sensitive that many remain classified to this day. According to leaked reports, they included advanced Japanese technical documents, what appeared to be early designs for missiles capable of reaching the West Coast, and most incredibly, evidence of a biological warfare program targeting major American cities. "The Emperor's scientists have weaponized a strain of hemorrhagic fever," Keiweikla wrote in his final journal entry from August 1, 1945, days before the atomic bombings. "Their plan is to deploy it against San Diego, Los Angeles, and San Francisco using submarine-launched delivery systems. Casualties would number in the millions. We have sabotaged their production facility, but samples have already been dispatched to forward bases. Our unit is being deployed for a final mission to intercept and destroy these weapons. If we fail, America faces a threat worse than anything we've encountered." What happened next remains one of the most closely guarded secrets of World War II. According to the limited documents made public, Keiweikla and 11 men from his unit conducted an unauthorized operation in the final days before Japan's surrender. They infiltrated a Japanese submarine base at Kure, located the biological agents, and destroyed them, but at a terrible cost. Only Colonel Keiweikla and 2 others survived the mission. Upon their return, instead of receiving commendations, they were sworn to absolute secrecy. The official explanation was straightforward. America didn't want the world, or its own citizens, to know how close the West Coast had come to devastation. But some historians believe there was another, darker reason. There's evidence in Keiweikla's journals suggesting that the biological weapons program wasn't entirely Japanese in origin, explained Dr. Whitecloud, choosing his words carefully. He makes several references to familiar formulas and research with American fingerprints. The implication is that some of the Japanese biological weapons may have been based on American research that fell into enemy hands, or worse, was deliberately shared before the two nations became enemies. This explosive suggestion that elements within the American scientific community might have contributed, whether directly or indirectly, to a weapons program later turned against the United States would explain the extreme secrecy surrounding Keweikla's unit and their operations. The most haunting item in the chest, however, was a single vial of cloudy liquid, sealed in a lead container and marked with Japanese characters and skull symbols. Initial testing confirmed it contained preserved biological material of unknown origin. It was immediately transferred to a CDC facility under the highest security protocols. Colonel Keweikla appears to have retained this sample as insurance, noted Dr. Lansing in her classified assessment. His journals suggest he didn't fully trust his superiors to acknowledge what had happened or to maintain vigilance against future threats of this nature. The chest also contained personal items that humanized the man behind these extraordinary missions. Letters to his wife, Helen, speaking in coded language about his activities, but expressing very real longing for home. A small leather pouch of Apache medicinal herbs. A photograph of his grandfather, the legendary Geronimo, alongside a modern military ID badge, symbols of two worlds that Keweikla had bridged. Perhaps most poignant was a handwritten letter, never sent, addressed to the President of the United States, dated September 2, 1945, the day Japan formally surrendered. "Mr. President," it began, "today you will receive news of victory and acclaim it as the triumph of American military might. What you will never acknowledge is that without 20 Apache warriors speaking a language your government once tried to exterminate, that victory might have come at a price too terrible to contemplate. We have served a country that has not always served us. We have saved countless American lives, while our own people still struggle on reservations. I do not regret my service, but I do wonder if our sacrifice will ever truly be known or honored. It wouldn't be, at least not during Keweikla's lifetime. After returning from the Pacific, he served 10 more years in the Army, retiring in 1955 as a full colonel. His official record mentioned nothing of his special operations. He returned to the San Carlos Apache Reservation in Arizona, where he lived quietly until his death in 1981. The war chest, which he had apparently kept secured at Fort Huachuca, through connections with former comrades, remained untouched for 24 more years. The discovery sent shockwaves through the military history community. Though much of it remained hidden from public view, a small team of historians and intelligence analysts spent 5 years examining the contents of the chest, resulting in a 1,200-page report that remains largely classified. What we can say with certainty, noted Pentagon spokesperson Major Jennifer Lockhart in a carefully worded statement, is that Colonel Keweikla and his men performed services for this country that went far beyond what has been previously acknowledged. Their contributions saved countless American lives and quite possibly prevented catastrophic attacks on the U.S. mainland. Oh, but this official acknowledgement raised as many questions as it answered. Why had these operations remained secret for so long? What else might still be hidden about America's conduct during World War II? And most troublingly, were there other threats identified by Keweikla that remained unaddressed? In 2009, a memorial to Keweikla's Apache unit was finally erected at Fort Huachuca, a simple stone monument bearing the names of the 19 men who had served under his command in the Pacific. The dedication ceremony was attended by military officials and descendants of the unit members, many of whom were learning the true nature of their fathers' and grandfathers' service for the first time. Sarah Keweikla, the colonel's granddaughter, spoke at the ceremony. "My grandfather went to his grave knowing he had helped save his country, but unable to tell even his family how he had done it. He carried that burden of silence for the rest of his life. Today, we can finally begin to understand the debt America owes to him and to all the Apache warriors who fought shadows most Americans never even knew existed. But the war chest's revelations weren't confined to historical interest. They had immediate and urgent implications for modern military intelligence. In a section of journal dated July 1944, Kaiwekla had written about infiltrating a remote research facility in the mountains of northern Japan. There, he discovered documents detailing a network of Japanese intelligence assets planted in America. Sleeper agents positioned in government offices, research facilities, and infrastructure centers intended to activate in case of Japan's defeat. They are planning beyond the war, he wrote, seeds planted that may take decades to bear fruit. Names and locations are being forwarded through secure channels, but I fear some may escape detection. The enemy thinks in terms of generations, not election cycles. Military intelligence analysts in the present day were alarmed to discover that not all the sleeper agents Kaiwekla identified had been apprehended in the post-war years. Some had apparently escaped notice, establishing themselves in American society. More disturbingly, there was evidence suggesting they had recruited successors, creating a multi-generational network of assets loyal to foreign interests. The most concerning journal entries suggested that the Japanese intelligence network had particularly targeted facilities in New Mexico, California, and Washington state, locations that would later become centers for American advanced weapons research, aerospace development, and, eventually, computer technology. Today, I recovered documents listing American institutions to be infiltrated. Kaiwekla wrote in an entry from April 1945, their primary targets include research laboratories at Los Alamos, Caltech, Boeing facilities, and several universities developing advanced technologies. They have identified vulnerable personnel who can be compromised, recruited, or replaced. Some infiltrations have already succeeded. These revelations prompted a quiet but intense security review at several government facilities in 2010. Officials refused to confirm whether this was linked to the Kaiwekla discoveries, but insiders reported that several longtime employees at sensitive installations were abruptly removed from their positions during this period. The official explanation was routine security protocol updates, but rumors persisted of a more directed purge. Dr. Marcus Wilson of the Defense Intelligence Agency, speaking on condition of anonymity, stated, "The Kaiwekla chest essentially revealed that we've been compromised for generations without knowing it. It's not just about historical interest. It has immediate national security implications. Some of the networks he identified may still be operational 7 decades later." In June 2011, another disturbing connection emerged. A series of cyber attacks targeted American military systems, employing sophisticated techniques that cybersecurity experts struggled to counter. The attack signatures bore unusual patterns that were eventually linked to encryption methods detailed in Kaiwekla's documents, suggesting that the modern attackers had historical connections to the networks he had uncovered. The Phoenix Lives read one decoded message embedded in the malware. The reference to the Phoenix operation identified in Kaiwekla's journals was unmistakable, suggesting that whatever long-term plan had been set in motion during World War II might still be advancing. Pentagon officials declined to comment on these connections, but increased security measures were visibly implemented at facilities mentioned in Kaiwekla's documents. Veterans of the intelligence community noted that the response indicated the threats were being taken very seriously at the highest levels. Perhaps the most disturbing contents of the war chest were found in a hidden compartment that initial investigators had missed. A small, lead-lined section concealed beneath the chest's wooden base. This secret compartment, discovered during restoration work in 2012, contained a thin metal tube with a rolled document inside. The document was written in a combination of Japanese and Apache, an encryption method Kaiwekla had developed that had proven unbreakable even to modern cryptanalysts. It took a combined team of linguists, including some elderly Apache speakers and Japanese language experts, nearly a year to fully decipher its contents. What they found was an apparent confession from a high-ranking Japanese scientist named Dr. Masahiro Watanabe, dated August 10, 1945, between the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The document described a weapons program far more ambitious than conventional biological warfare. "We have opened doors that should have remained closed," the translation read. "The American atomic program seeks to split the atom, but our research has gone further. We have glimpsed what lies beyond conventional dimensions. The technologies we have developed allow for manipulation of forces that modern science does not yet have names for. If our work falls into the wrong hands, American, Russian, or others, the consequences could extend beyond mere destruction of cities. The very fabric of reality could be threatened." The document went on to detail experiments conducted in a facility deep beneath a mountain in northern Honshu, experiments involving elements not found in the natural world and phenomena that defy the known laws of physics. According to Watanabe's confession, the Japanese program had achieved breakthroughs that made atomic weapons look primitive by comparison. Most alarming was his claim that the program hadn't been fully contained. "Certain aspects have taken on a life of their own," he wrote. "Some of the researchers believe they have made contact with intelligences not of this world, entities that have offered knowledge in exchange for certain concessions. I fear what we have unleashed cannot be undone by mere military defeat." See, Kaiwekla's accompanying notes indicated that his final mission, the one that had cost the lives of 9 of his men, had been to destroy this facility and seal whatever had been discovered there. His journal entry, the last one chronologically, was chilling in its brevity. "We have closed the door they opened, at least for now. The cost was higher than I can bear to record. What we witnessed in that cavern will haunt me until my death. I pray it remains buried forever." The government's response to these revelations was swift and multifaceted. A classified expedition was reportedly sent to northern Japan in 2013, focusing on a remote mountainous region mentioned in the Watanabe document. Satellite imagery confirmed extensive activity in the area, though officially it was described as a joint scientific research project between American and Japanese authorities. Witnesses in nearby villages reported unusual phenomena during the expedition: electronic devices failing without explanation, compass needles spinning randomly, and in one widely circulated but unverified account, a brief period where gravity itself seemed to fluctuate, causing objects to float momentarily before crashing back to the ground. Whatever they found there, they brought specialized containment equipment, reported Haruki Tanaka, a local resident who observed military convoys passing through his village. The vehicles had American and Japanese markings, but some of the personnel didn't look like conventional military. They wore strange, protective gear unlike anything I have seen before. The expedition's findings remain classified, but subsequent security protocols implemented at various research facilities suggest that something significant was discovered. New containment units were constructed at several military bases, including a massive underground facility at an undisclosed location in Nevada. Personnel with expertise in quantum physics, dimensional theory, and exotic materials were quietly recruited from universities and private industry, offered exceptional salaries and benefits in exchange for work under the strictest security conditions. Back at Fort Huachuca, the implications of Kaiwekla's discoveries continued to unfold. The base, once scheduled for downsizing, received new funding and expanded its historical intelligence operations. A specialized unit was established to review other potentially overlooked historical materials, searching for additional information related to the Phoenix operation and the Japanese research program. Colonel Kawakla's chest opened a Pandora's box of historical secrets, commented Dr. Lansing, who continued to lead the research team. But unlike the myth, we haven't found hope at the bottom. Only more questions and more disturbing possibilities. The war in the Pacific was clearly far stranger and more terrifying than conventional history acknowledges. Public access to the chest and its contents remained severely restricted. Only a handful of the photographs and journal entries were ever released, and those were heavily redacted. The official explanation cited ongoing national security concerns and respect for still classified operations, but critics suggested a simpler motivation. The government didn't want to admit how much had been hidden from the American people for so long. The few Apache veterans who had served under Kawakla and were still alive in the 2010s were located and interviewed extensively. Most had maintained their silence for decades, honoring the secrecy oaths they had taken. Now, with official permission to speak about certain aspects of their service, they provided new insights into the shadowy operations conducted throughout the Pacific. Thomas Loco, who had been a young radio man in Kawakla's unit, recalled their infiltration of Tokyo itself in early 1945. "We moved through the city in plain sight, wearing clothes we had taken from Japanese civilians. Colonel Kawakla spoke enough Japanese to get by, and the rest of us stayed silent or only spoke Apache to each other. We placed listening devices in government buildings, intercepted documents, and mapped defense installations, all while American bombers flew overhead. The Japanese never imagined enemies could be walking their own streets." Raymond Natsili, who had served as Kawakla's second-in-command, spoke about the final mission to the research facility. "What we found there wasn't just weapons, it was something else entirely, something that shouldn't have existed. The colonel ordered all records destroyed and the entire facility sealed. 3 of our men never came out of the lower levels. We heard their screams over the radio, but they weren't screams of pain or fear. They were screaming about the colors and the voices. Colors that shouldn't exist, and voices that came from nowhere." These testimonies, while compelling, raised as many questions as they answered. What exactly had the Japanese discovered? What were the doors referenced in Watanabe's confession? And most crucially, had Kawakla's team truly contained whatever had been unleashed or merely delayed its emergence? The war chest's legacy extended beyond military and intelligence circles. The Apache Nation, upon learning of Kawakla's extraordinary service, petitioned for greater recognition of Native American contributions to American security. In 2016, a special exhibit at the National Museum of the American Indian in Washington, D.C. highlighted the role of Native code talkers and intelligence operatives, though specific details of Kawakla's operations remained classified. Clara Kawakla, the colonel's daughter, then in her 80s, spoke at the exhibit's opening. "My father never told us what he really did during the war. He would say he was just a soldier doing his duty. Now I understand that his duty took him places and showed him things that no human should have to see. He carried those burdens silently, protecting not just his country, but perhaps all of humanity." The academic community, particularly historians specializing in World War II, were forced to reconsider many of their assumptions about the conflict. Dr. James Hendricks of Columbia University noted, "The Kawakla discoveries suggest that beneath the conventional war, the battles and campaigns recorded in our textbooks, there was another layer of conflict involving intelligence, counterintelligence, and unconventional warfare that has remained largely hidden. It raises the question, how much of our understanding of modern history is similarly incomplete? Some of the more startling claims in the Kaiwekla documents were dismissed by mainstream historians as exaggerations or misinterpretations. The references to intelligences not of this world and physics-defying phenomena were particularly controversial, with skeptics suggesting they were metaphorical descriptions of advanced but conventional technologies, or perhaps psychological warfare tactics. Dr. Elizabeth Chen, a physicist who was granted limited access to the technical documents found in the chest, disagreed. The descriptions in these materials, while expressed in 1940s terminology, align with certain theoretical concepts in modern quantum physics, ideas involving multiple dimensions, entangled particles, and non-local causality. It's disturbing to think that Japanese researchers might have been experimenting with these concepts in such a reckless manner, without understanding the potential consequences. In 2017, a series of unusual seismic events were recorded in northern Japan, centered on the region where the supposed research facility had been located. Official explanations cited natural tectonic activity, but leaked communications between American and Japanese authorities referred to containment concerns and potential breaches of the Kaiwekla protocols, suggesting that whatever had been sealed away during that final mission in 1945 might be becoming active once more. An international response team was quietly assembled, including personnel from specialized units of the American, Japanese, and Russian military forces. Their deployment was not publicly acknowledged, but satellite imagery showed extensive activity in the area, including the construction of what appeared to be massive concrete containment structures around several cave entrances. The operation lasted 3 months and involved technologies not commonly associated with military forces: advanced particle detectors, gravitational anomaly sensors, and equipment typically used in theoretical physics research rather than battlefield operations. When the team finally withdrew, no official statement was made, but seismic activity in the region ceased entirely. Not diminished, but completely absent, as if that section of the Earth had been somehow isolated from normal geological processes. Throughout these modern developments, Kaiwekla's war chest remained at Fort Huachuca, now secured in a purpose-built facility with security protocols typically reserved for the most sensitive nuclear materials. Access was granted to only a handful of specially cleared researchers, and even they were limited to examining specific items under strict supervision. The chest itself became something of a legend within military intelligence circles, a physical reminder that history as recorded in official documents and academic texts might be merely the surface layer of a much deeper, stranger, and more disturbing reality. In his final years, Colonel Kaiwekla had served as an instructor at the Fort Huachuca Intelligence School, though his official role gave no hint of his extraordinary wartime experiences. Former students, now elderly themselves, recalled his enigmatic warnings about threats beyond conventional understanding, and his insistence that true security requires vigilance against dangers most people cannot imagine. At the time, these statements were dismissed as the eccentricities of an aging officer. In light of the chest's revelations, they took on a more prophetic quality. Perhaps the most profound impact of the Kaiwekla discoveries was on America's modern intelligence apparatus. The confirmation that Japanese sleeper agents had remained undetected for decades prompted a fundamental reassessment of counterintelligence methods. If such networks could operate unseen for generations, what other threats might be similarly embedded in American society, waiting for the right moment to emerge? More philosophical questions also arose from the chest's contents. Throughout his journals, Kaiwekla had reflected on the irony of his position. A Native American descended from warriors who had fought against American expansion, now defending America against external threats. His writings revealed a complex patriotism, a love for a country that had not always loved him or his people in return. "I fight for an America that might yet exist," he wrote in 1944, "not merely the America that is. My grandfather Geronimo fought against the U.S. cavalry to protect our way of life. I fight alongside the American military to protect all ways of life against forces that would eliminate human freedom entirely." Both fights were necessary. This perspective resonated powerfully in the modern context of American military service, where personnel from diverse backgrounds continue to defend a nation still working to fully live up to its ideals of equality and justice. As for the mysterious phenomena hinted at in Kawaikla's most classified writings, the doors opened by Japanese researchers, the entities they allegedly contacted, the physics-defying technologies they developed, these remain the subject of intense speculation and continued research. Occasional leaks from within the intelligence community suggest that understanding and containing these phenomena has become one of America's highest security priorities, conducted under classification levels beyond those publicly acknowledged. The war chest that seemed at first to be merely of historical interest has proven to be something far more significant. A warning from the past about threats still present, dangers still unfolding, and battles still being fought in shadows most Americans never see. In his final journal entry, Kawaikla had written words that seem eerily prescient. "What we have contained is not destroyed. What we have hidden is not gone. The war does not end with treaties or surrenders. Some conflicts continue beyond the recognition of governments or the memory of peoples. Vigilance is not merely a duty, it is a necessity for survival." 70 years after he wrote those words, in classified facilities across America, men and women continue the work he began, guarding against threats few citizens know exist, fighting battles that will never be recorded in conventional histories, and maintaining vigilance against forces that defy ordinary understanding. The Apache commander's war chest, with its extraordinary contents, serves as both historical artifact and ongoing warning. The past, it suggests, is not merely prologue, it is present, continuing to unfold in ways we are only beginning to comprehend. In the mountains of northern Japan, the concrete containment structures remain in place, monitored continuously by sophisticated sensors. Occasionally, instruments record anomalous readings, fluctuations in electromagnetic fields, quantum disturbances, brief alterations in the fundamental constants of physics within highly localized areas. Each time, response teams deploy immediately, implementing protocols developed from Kawaikla's notes and refined through decades of classified research. Each time, the anomalies are contained. But for how long? And at what cost? The final item in Kawaikla's chest, found in a hidden pocket sewn into its lid, was a simple handwritten note addressed to whoever might discover it in the future. If you are reading this, then the burden has passed to you. What we faced in the shadows of that war threatens not just nations, but the very nature of reality itself. The enemy is patient beyond human comprehension. The doors they opened can never be fully closed, only guarded. I have done my duty for as long as fate allowed. Now it falls to you. May God and all the powers of creation give you strength for what lies ahead. The note was signed simply, John Kawaikla, Colonel, United States Army, Guardian of the Threshold. Whatever threshold he guarded, between nations, between dimensions, between understood reality and something beyond, his warning continues to echo through classified briefings and specialized training programs. The war that most Americans believe ended in 1945 continues in forms that conventional history does not record, and that most citizens cannot imagine. And somewhere, in a secure facility beneath Fort Huachuca, the Apache commander's war chest remains, a physical link to extraordinary secrets, a repository of hidden history, and a reminder that the most important battles are often fought by those whose service remains unacknowledged and whose victories go uncelebrated. When the maintenance crew discovered that wooden chest in 2005, they had no way of knowing that they weren't merely uncovering history. They were reopening a conflict that had never truly ended. A conflict that continues in the shadows to this day. As you look around your world, with its apparent peace and stability, consider what forces might be at work beyond your awareness. What battles might be unfolding to protect the reality you take for granted. What guardians, like Colonel Kaiwekla, might be standing watch at thresholds you cannot see. And perhaps, in quiet moments, you might feel something. A subtle disturbance in the air, a momentary flicker in the quality of light, a sense that the world as you know it is thinner and more fragile than you've been led to believe. In those moments, remember the Apache commander and his hidden war, and know that you are not alone in sensing that something lies beyond the veil of ordinary perception. For those who seek truth and understanding in these uncertain times, remember that ultimate protection comes not from military might or technological advancement, but from higher powers. In the face of threats that transcend ordinary comprehension, many find solace and strength in faith. As Colonel Kaiwekla himself wrote in his most private journal, "When facing shadows beyond human understanding, I turn to the light of God and the teachings of Jesus Christ. Against forces that would unmake reality itself, divine protection remains our strongest shield." The greatest secret the Apache commander's war chest revealed may be this: the boundary between our world and whatever lies beyond requires constant vigilance, not just by specialized agencies and classified programs, but by ordinary citizens willing to acknowledge that reality may be stranger and more precarious than we're comfortable admitting. The first line of defense is awareness, the final protection, faith. The chest is secure. The watch continues. But for how long? The year 2020 marked the 15th anniversary of the discovery of Colonel Kaiwekla's war chest. While most Americans remained oblivious to its significance, within certain government circles, the date prompted renewed security protocols and heightened vigilance. The warnings contained in the Apache commander's documents had proven prophetic in ways that even the most classified intelligence reports hesitated to fully articulate. Dr. Elizabeth Lansing, now the senior archivist for Special Historical Collections at the Pentagon, reviewed her notes from the original examination of the chest. She was one of only 3 people still alive who had seen all of its contents in their entirety. The others, a military intelligence officer and a quantum physicist, had both died under circumstances officially described as natural causes, though rumors within the intelligence community suggested otherwise. "The 15-year containment cycle is ending," she wrote in her classified assessment. "If Colonel Kaiwekla's predictions hold true, we should expect increased activity at the 7 sites he identified. Particularly concerning is Site 3, where monitoring equipment has detected progressive deterioration of the quantum stabilization field. Situt. Site 3, the designation for the facility in northern Japan that Kaiwekla's team had sealed in 1945, had indeed shown troubling signs. Specialized sensors recorded increasingly frequent fluctuations in what classified documents referred to as dimensional integrity. Theoretical physicists assigned to the monitoring program used more disturbing terminology in their private communications: reality fractures and membrane thinning. The International Response Team, now permanently stationed at a nearby facility, had implemented countermeasures developed through decades of research, But these were proving less effective with each passing month. Something was changing, strengthening, perhaps learning to circumvent the barriers imposed against it. "We need access to the final compartment," argued Dr. James Chen, head of the Theoretical Physics Division assigned to the Kewikla protocols. "Everything we've seen suggests he knew more than what's in the declassified materials. The chest must contain additional information about what they encountered and how they contained it." The final compartment referred to a section of Kewikla's war chest that had resisted all attempts at non-destructive access. Scans revealed a space approximately 6 inches square within the chest's base, lined with materials that blocked all known imaging technologies. The decision had been made in 2005 to preserve rather than force this compartment open, fearing that doing so might trigger security measures Kewikla had put in place. Now, with anomalies increasing at all 7 monitored sites, that decision was being reconsidered. The authorization came directly from the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The final compartment would be opened under the most stringent security conditions. The war chest was transferred from Fort Huachuca to a specialized facility beneath the New Mexico desert, a location chosen for its isolation and existing containment capabilities. A team including Dr. Lansing, 3 military cryptologists, a quantum physicist, and a cultural expert on Apache traditions gathered to witness the procedure. Also present was Maria Kewikla, great-granddaughter of Colonel John Kewikla and a linguistic anthropologist specializing in Apache language. Her security clearance had been expedited specifically for this operation. "My great-grandfather left markers in his journal," Maria explained as technicians prepared to access the compartment. Phrases in Apache that didn't quite make sense until you recognized they're parts of a traditional song cycle. He was leaving instructions for family members, should the chest ever be found. The compartment, when finally opened, contained a single item, a small obsidian disc, approximately 4 inches in diameter, etched with symbols that combined Apache pictographs, mathematical equations, and what appeared to be astronomical coordinates. The disc was warm to the touch, despite having been sealed in a wooden chest for decades, and sensitive instruments detected unusual energy patterns emanating from it. "It's a key," Maria said quietly, studying the markings. "Not a physical key, but an information key. The patterns correspond to locations, times, and methods. He's telling us how to renew the seals at each site." The technical team worked through the night, translating the information encoded in the disk's patterns. What emerged was a detailed protocol for strengthening the containment measures at each of the 7 sites Kewikla had identified. The instructions combined advanced theoretical physics with traditional Apache ceremonial elements, a merger of science and spirituality that defied conventional categorization. Most remarkably, the disk contained information about quantum principles that had only been theoretically proposed in the last decade, as if Kewikla had somehow gained knowledge of concepts that wouldn't be discovered by mainstream science until 70 years after his time. He understood things about the nature of reality that our best physicists are only beginning to grasp. Dr. Chen noted with a mixture of awe and discomfort. The question isn't just how he knew. It's what exactly he was trying to contain that required such knowledge. Implementation of the renewed containment protocols began immediately. Teams were dispatched to all 7 sites, carrying specialized equipment constructed according to the specifications derived from the obsidian disk. The operation was classified at the highest level, with cover stories ranging from environmental remediation to geological research. At Site 3 in northern Japan, the team encountered unexpected resistance. 3 technicians working on the containment field reported hearing voices offering knowledge beyond human limitations in exchange for disabling certain aspects of the security measures. 2 suffered severe psychological breakdowns and were immediately evacuated. the third attempted to sabotage the equipment before being restrained by security personnel. "It's getting stronger," the team leader reported. "Whatever is on the other side of the barrier Kaiwaikla created is becoming more adept at influencing human consciousness. We need to complete the reinforcement procedures before it finds more effective methods of interference." The protocols were successfully implemented at all 7 sites by October 2020. Monitoring equipment showed immediate stabilization of the anomalous readings, and psychological influence attempts ceased entirely. The crisis, it seemed, had been averted, at least for the time being. In the aftermath, Maria Kaiwaikla was offered a permanent position with the classified program overseeing the containment sites. Her unique combination of Apache cultural knowledge and academic expertise made her invaluable to understanding her great-grandfather's methods. "He knew this wasn't a one-time solution," she explained during her debriefing. "The final markings on the disk indicate a cycle: 15 years, then 10, then 5. The intervals between necessary reinforcement will grow shorter. Whatever is being contained is persistent, and it's learning." The implications were sobering. The next critical period would arrive in 2030, then 2035. Each time, the containment measures would need to be reinforced according to evolving protocols. Each time, the entity or entities being contained would have developed new strategies for breaching the barriers. The obsidian disk was returned to a specially constructed storage unit at Fort Huachuca, alongside the other contents of Kaiwaikla's war chest. New security measures were implemented, including constant surveillance and biometric access restrictions. The facility itself was expanded, with dedicated research teams assigned to study the materials and prepare for the next containment cycle. But questions remained that no amount of research could fully answer. What exactly had the Japanese researchers encountered in their secret facility? What doors had they opened, and to where? What intelligences not of this world had they supposedly contacted? And perhaps most importantly, why had Colonel Kaiwaikla, a career military officer, chosen to incorporate traditional Apache spiritual practices into his containment methods? Maria Kaiwaikla offered the most compelling theory. "My great-grandfather recognized something that modern science is reluctant to acknowledge: that reality itself has both physical and spiritual dimensions. What the Japanese encountered exists at the intersection of both. Containing it requires addressing both aspects. Science alone is insufficient. Spirituality alone is incomplete. The answer lies in their integration." This perspective gained surprising acceptance among the physicists working on the program, many of whom had witnessed phenomena that defied conventional scientific explanation. Dr. Chen, initially skeptical of including ceremonial elements in the containment protocols, became one of their strongest advocates after observing their effectiveness. "There are aspects of reality that our current scientific framework cannot fully explain," he acknowledged in his classified assessment. Colonel Kaiwaikla somehow intuited this 75 years ago. His methods work, even if we don't fully understand why. Sometimes effective practice precedes comprehensive theory. As monitoring of the 7 sites continued, a new generation of Guardians took up the watch that Kaiwaikla and his Apache unit had begun during World War II. On Odrit, they carried forward his warning that some conflicts extend beyond conventional understanding, some enemies operate on timescales beyond human lifespans, and some victories are measured not in conquest, but in continued vigilance. The war that most Americans believe ended with Japan's surrender in 1945 continues in classified facilities and remote locations around the world. The Apache commander's war chest, with its extraordinary contents, remains both historical artifact and operational manual for a conflict that may never truly end. And, somewhere, Beyond barriers maintained through a combination of advanced physics and ancient wisdom, entities wait, patient, persistent, and determined to access our reality. The only thing standing in their way is the legacy of an Apache warrior who understood that true protection requires both the best of human knowledge and the strength that comes from powers beyond human comprehension. As Colonel Kewekla wrote in his final recorded words, "In this world or any other, faith remains our strongest shield. Where science reaches its limits, spirit must carry forward. The threshold must be guarded, not for years or decades, but for as long as humanity endures." The watch continues. The Guardians remain vigilant, and the war chest's secrets continue to protect a world that will never know how close it has come to forces beyond imagination, or how much it owes to an Apache commander and his hidden warriors.